Welcome to Mindful Leadership, Transforming Lives, with your host, Singh. This is where leadership meets purpose, presence, and passion. In today's fast paced, high pressure world, we face a leadership crisis. Too often, teams are led by managers who lack empathy, clarity, and vision, leaving individuals uninspired, disconnected, and undervalued. But it doesn't have to be this way. Great leadership isn't born, it's built. The end game: empower your leadership, inspire the world. Every week, join me, your host Singh, as we tackle the gaps in leadership and life coaching head on, learning how mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and compassion can redefine success. This isn't just another podcast, it's a mission to fill the void left by ineffective leadership. And it's not just about leadership in business. Life coaching for leaders and new executives is at heart of this journey. Ready to rise above the noise and lead with clarity, purpose, and impact? Join a global movement dedicated to reshaping the future of leadership one mindful moment at a time. Let's begin.
Welcome back to another episode of Mindful Leadership Podcast on the Transformation Network. The podcast where we turn stress into strategy, overthinking into clarity, and overwhelm into momentum. I'm your host, Singh, the leadership coach who knows that growth does not happen through burnout, it happens through alignment. Let's begin. Let's set the scene. It's Monday morning, your coffee piping hot, just shy of third-degree burns, inbox manageable, only 1,700 emails, which might feel like vacation mode these days, right? And then you meditated for 8 whole minutes. You're basically a Buddha in a blazer, right? But then Slack lights up like it's auditioning for a disaster movie. The vendor ghosted, the client wanted it yesterday, and by the way, the specs changed. Oh, and that new software update, yeah, it's just nuked everything. In that moment, your inner monk is gone. Left the chat, didn't even drop a peace sign emoji on that way. Now, suddenly, you're not a leader anymore. You're a firefighter with Wi Fi. And here's the real kicker: why do some teams completely unravel in that moment, while others tighten up, recalibrate, and somehow walk out stronger? It's not IQ, it's not the budget size, it's definitely not some overpriced MBA framed in reclaimed bond, right? It's adaptability. And listen, in 2026, where AI is out here rewriting job descriptions faster than HR can finish lunch, adaptability is not a soft skill anymore. It is survival. But let me be clear, today we are not talking about embracing change like it's some Pinterest motivational poster hanging in a co working space. No, this is about building teams that are anti fragile, teams that don't panic when system crashes, teams that don't freeze when market shifts, teams that don't need their inner monk to survive on a Monday. So let's build on that. Let's get something straight right out the gate. Adaptability is not something we are born with. It's not like dimples, right? Or a freakish metabolism that lets you crush a midnight pizza and still show up 6 a.m., meeting bright eyed and bushy tailed. No, adaptability is a skill. And here is what that means. If your team is not adaptable, it's not because they are just not wired that way. It is because you have not trained them for it. Now, here's the real problem. Most teams only try to flex their adaptability muscles when they are already drowning in chaos. Let me hit you with a visual. That's like trying to learn to swim in middle of a tsunami. Three people frantically Googling how to swim for beginners. Two others panicking like they are in the deleted scene from Titanic. And there's always one person standing on a metaphorical chair, confidently yelling, "Don't worry, we'll figure it out." They don't figure it out. Adaptability is not about reacting better, it is about preparing smarter. A few years ago, I worked with a leadership team that lost their largest client overnight. Seven-figure contract gone. Now, for most teams, that is DEFCON 1, right? Just think about that late night emergency meetings, finger pointing, and 47 versions of the same PowerPoint slide. But this team, they didn't flinch because every quarter they ran what they called disaster rehearsals. They would sit down and ask, what if our biggest client leaves tomorrow? What if our tech fails during a major launch? What if supply chain shuts down? And when the worst case scenario actually happened, there was no drama. And within 48 hours, they had a pivot strategy locked and loaded. Same crisis, completely different nervous system. That is adaptability. So let me ask you this. When was the last time your team practiced disruption before it arrived? All right. Let's take a little detour here because we need to talk about why people resist change. And let's be honest, it's not because we are allergic to growth. It's because change feels like extra work, right? When someone says we're implementing a new system, your brain immediately goes, or hear me out, we just don't. It's like when your phone forces you to update the software. Everything looks different. Your app have moved. You're just trying to send a text, but instead you accidentally open the flashlight. Now you are integrating your own face at 6 a.m. like you're auditioning for an episode of CSI Morning Edition, right? That feeling. That is exactly how your team feels when you drop unprepared change on them. Confused, blinded, slightly betrayed. But here is the thing. You don't have to let your team drown in that chaos. Because adaptability, real adaptability, is not about tolerating change, it's about training for it, right? Because unprepared change is nothing but a chaos in a shiny new outfit, right? And once you have built that muscle, your team does not just survive disruption, they thrive on it. Okay, so let's get deeper. If adaptability is the muscle, psychological safety is the oxygen. Let it settle. No one experiments in a room where mistakes are punished. No one raises their hand in a meeting when failure feels like public execution. No one takes a risk when the cost of a misstep is humiliation. And here is the uncomfortable truth. If your team hides mistakes from you, that's not a performance issue, that is a safety issue. Now, leaders, this is where you have got to step up. If you want to build adaptable, innovative, future proof teams, you have got to go model imperfection publicly. Yeah, I know that probably stings because we have all been trained to lead with confidence, to always have the answer, to protect the myth of the all knowing authority. But here's the thing, that is an act. It is not inspiring your team, it is suffocating them. Psychological safety is not announced, it is demonstrated. I worked with another leader, Miranda, absolutely powerhouse, running a team of 30. They're handling multi-million dollar projects. But here's what she noticed. Whenever something went wrong, her team froze. Nobody wanted to take ownership. Nobody wanted to speak up. Why? Because Miranda did not realize her default response to mistakes. Her tone would get hypercritical. Her feedback, all problem, no solution. Her face, let's just say, even the printer was afraid of her. And one day we had a real conversation. I asked her, when someone on your team makes a mistake, what is your first instinct? Curiosity or control? Think about it. She thought about it and she said, honestly, I want to fix it immediately. And I said, that is your problem. See, when you jump straight to control, you're telling your team mistakes are not safe here. And that fear, it kills experimentation, it kills innovation, it kills trust. So we tried something different. Once a week, Miranda started sharing her own mistakes with team publicly. She would say something like this. Hey, here's where I dropped the ball this week. Here is what I learned. And here is what I'm doing differently moving forward. That one act, it changed her entire team dynamics. People started speaking up more in the meeting. They started owning their own mistakes. They did not wait for her to sweep in and fix everything because they knew it was safe to try, fail, and learn. Psychological safety is the difference between a team that hides and a team that grows. And here is the thing about leaders and mistake. We hate admitting them. Why? Because somewhere along the way, we got this weird idea that leadership is about being perfect. But honestly, trying to be the perfect leader is like trying to assemble IKEA furniture without the instructions. You think you're doing great until you realize the shelf is upside down. There's one screw left over, and somehow you have emotionally scarred your entire family. But I'm the leader. I know what I'm doing. No, you don't. And that's okay because your team does not need to be perfect, they need to be human. Admitting your mistake does not make you weak, it makes you trustworthy. And trust is the foundation of psychological safety. So here is a challenge this week. Show your team what real leadership looks like. Once, just once, share a mistake you made. Keep it simple. What happened? What did you learn? And how are you moving forward? That is it. Because when you model imperfection, you're giving your team the permission to do the same. And when your team feels safe to fail, that's when they start innovating, experimenting, and growing without you having to micromanage their every move. So ask yourself right now, when someone on your team messes up, what is your first instinct? Curiosity or control? Because that answer is the difference between building a team that survives and a team that thrives. All right. We have talked about why adaptability matters. We explored the mindset shifts, but now it's time to make this practical because here's the thing, you cannot hope your team becomes adaptable. That's like hoping a vending machine eats your dollar and spits out your snack. No, it's not going to happen. Adaptability is not magic, it is a muscle. And today, I'm going to give you three tools to flex it: simple, powerful, ready to use. So let's start with the first one: scenario rehearsals, right? So, what if your team treated disruption the way pilots treat engine failure? Think about it. Pilots don't wait for turbulence at 30,000 feet to start Googling how to land a plane. They practice engine failure over and over in simulators. But what do most leaders do? They wait for chaos to hit and then say, all right, team, let's figure this out on the fly. That's not leadership, that's improv, comedy without the laughs. Schedule 30 minutes with your team and ask three questions. What if our biggest client leaves tomorrow? What if AI automates half of our workflow overnight? And what if our top performer quits? See, you're not predicting doom, you're rehearsing calm. Because when disruption shows up, and trust me, it will, your team will not just react, they will know what to do. Same storm, different nervous system. Next up, let's talk about second tool, pivots, micro pivots. Now, when people hear the word pivot, they imagine some dramatic headline worthy reinvention. No, like Netflix going from mailing DVDs to streaming everything. No, across somehow becoming cool again. But real adaptability is not about giant reinventions, it's about small, deliberate course corrections. So here's your move: pick one project this week, just one, then ask your team, what is one tweak that could make this 10% better? Not 200%, not a total recall, just 10% better. Why? Because small pivots train flexible thinking. See, rigid teams, they snap under pressure, but flexible teams, they bend and bounce back. So stop chasing perfection, start practicing progress. And then the third tool, the postmortem flip, right? And this is a game changer. After your next project, whether it crushed or crashed, sit down with your team and ask just two questions: what worked and what we would do differently next time. That is it. No blame, no theatrics, no 47-page slide presentation, just learning, right? Adaptability is not built in drama, it is built in debrief. Because here's the truth: teams don't grow during chaos, they grow when they reflect on it afterwards. So don't skip the postmortem, it's where the magic happens. Now let's zoom out for a second. Look at the world we are leading in right now. Markets shift overnight. AI is changing job descriptions. Teams are hybrid, remote, global, you name it. If your culture depends on stability, it is on borrowed time. Let it sink. Because if your culture is built on learning, that is when you become anti fragile. And here is what anti fragile means: you don't just survive disruption, you grow because of it. That is the kind of team you want, that is the kind of leader you need to be. All right. So, schedule a scenario rehearsal, practice disruption before it arrives. Pick one project, just one. Make a micro pivot, just 10%. Run a post mortem, no blame, just lessons. And here's a challenge this week: pick one of these tools and actually use it. Because great leaders don't just talk about adaptability, they train for it. And when the turbulence hit, you won't be reacting, you will be ready. Remember, every time we talk about mindful practice, it all starts with that moment in time where you take that deep breath. Three, deep breath, intentional deep breath, feeling the air, inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your nose. Cold when you inhale, and warm when it's exhaled. Get your prefrontal cortex engaged and just become observer. Scenario rehearsal, just become observer. Don't show a scenario and start solving for it, right? Project macro pivots, become an observer. There's no isolation of changes. You have to be thoughtful, but not judgmental. Just because you make a change that is going to give you 10% better result does not give you or does not show you that it was somebody's fault. No. Same thing with postmortem. No blame, just lessons. And then once you have identified, name it. Because every time we name, our brain accepts that as normal and not a fight or flight situation. And then take one intentional move. Just one intentional move. All right. Take a breath with me, because here's the reframe I want to leave you with. Adaptability is not just something your team does, it is who they become. And your job as a leader is not to eliminate chaos, it is to build nervous systems strong enough to navigate it. So when Slack explodes, the deal falls through, and your Wi Fi decides to take a coffee break right in the middle of your pitch, that is not your breakdown moment. That is your leadership rep. And what is repped is kept. Good. Because now the resilient operator steps in, the one who sees chaos, takes a deep breath and says, all right, let's dance. So here's your move today. It's simple, but trust me, it's powerful. The next time disruption shows up, because it will, don't react right away. Instead, pause for 90 seconds. Don't speak, don't type, don't fix. Just breathe. Inhale, hold, exhale. And one more time. Inhale, hold, and exhale. And one more time. Inhale, hold, and exhale. Then ask yourself, what does adaptability look like here? See, that one pause, it will change your tone. Your change in tone will help change your team, and your team will change the outcome. But here's the thing, adaptability is just one piece of the puzzle. If you really want to future proof your team, you need clarity of purpose. Why? Because purpose is what grounds you when everything else is spinning out of control. When you know the why, you don't just react to change, you lead through it. And that's where the purpose factor assessment comes in. We not only identify the archetype that you are, but it also helps you understand what are the things that frustrates and fulfills you based on each of those archetypes. It shows you how you lead others and how you like to be led by others. And then it shows you your blind spots. So once you have taken the purpose factor assessment for each of the archetypes, the goal becomes how can we maximize what fulfills us and minimize what frustrates us? Because purpose is the best of what you have to give others. The assessment is designed to give you crystal clear insight into what drives you, what fuels your decisions, and what makes you resilient under pressure. Because let's be real, confident leaders are not born, they're built. And that confidence, it starts with clarity. So take the assessment, it is quick, it's actionable, and it's next step towards becoming the kind of leader your team needs. Great leader don't react to change, they train for it. And that is how you future proof your team. Thank you for listening to me. You're listening to Singh, your host of the Mindful Leadership Transforming Lives on the Transformation Network. We'll see you again next time. Till then, stay safe, stay bold, and pivot.
Thank you for watching Mindful Leadership Transforming Lives. With me, your host, Singh. We are honored to have you join us on this journey to explore the transformative power of mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and authentic leadership. Tune in every week on transformationtalkradio.com at noon Pacific on Tuesdays, where we will continue to explore how mindful leadership can create a ripple effect of positive changes in your life and lives of those you influence. This show is dedicated to helping you lead with purpose, presence, and passion. Whether you're navigating the complexities of business, building strong connection with your team, or striving to make a meaningful impact in the world around you. To learn more about the show, access additional resources, or dive deeper, visit singhpowerupcoach.com. Remember, leadership isn't just about what you do, it's about who you are. Let's continue to transform lives together, one mindful moment at a time. See you next week.